As an Iraqi war vet and Purple Heart recipient, Senator Tammy Duckworth knows what it means to make sacrifices for your country. And she joins us today to talk about being chosen for a task force faced with daunting questions. Is reopening the economy worth the risk of sacrificing American lives? Please welcome Senator Tammy Duckworth. Thank you for coming on to the show. You know, we were talking earlier about you-know-who storming out of a press conference yesterday after a heated exchange with two female reporters. What did you take away from it? Is it the fact that they were female? What is it, do you think?
Well, I think he got called out on his racism. He has really been targeting Asian Americans in particular, and he was speaking to an Asian female reporter, and I think he could bully her and she wouldn't take it and stood up to him. And so anytime strong women have stood up to Donald Trump, he actually, like most bullies, retreats. And in this case, you could see that he turned tail and ran out of that meeting when two female reporters backed each other up.
So the United States is now has surpassed 80,000 deaths and climbing in the coronavirus pandemic. And Trump seems to think that he can magically wish it away. You know, it's going to go away. Oh, yeah, right. So you come from a state that's been hit very hard. Can you speak to his magical thinking for a second?
Well, the man is delusional and has no basis in his thinking in any type of science. My state has been hit very hard, but you know what? Our governor has done some really made some tough decisions, and he's done an excellent job, as has our mayor of the city of Chicago. But here's the deal. If we want to reopen the economy, we need to test. We need to have enough testing for everyone. When I served in the Army, I did a pretty dangerous job flying helicopters. And so we would never send an air crew out on a mission without mitigating those risks. And one of the ways that we can mitigate the risk of COVID-19 is to have adequate testing for everyone who needs them, and they need to be free. It's not just enough for the president to make sure that those around him get tested on a daily basis. You know, he needs to stop worrying about what's inside the White House and start worrying about all the Americans outside the White House who need testing.
Now, Senator, two aides in contact with both the president and vice president tested positive for coronavirus, which is no surprise since the White House hasn't been following their own guidelines, from Vice President Pence at the Mayo Clinic without a mask to President Trump ignoring social distancing. And even though yesterday the White House mandated mask wearing in the West Wing, is it too little, too late? And why do you think Trump just still refuses to wear a mask publicly?
Well, I think Trump wants to spin this and try to convince Americans that we are in the clear of this pandemic and it will go away. It's part of what Whoopi was saying. This is his magical thinking, and it's not going to go away. I mean, he's been a hypocrite about all of this because he mandates testing for everybody who's in his immediate orbit. And apparently he threw a fit and asked why the Secret Service agents were not wearing masks and made sure that they had masks. So it's okay for him to be protected inside the White House, with lots of testing, all the testing that he needs. And yet for Americans who are reporting to work as janitors or as cashiers at our local grocery store, or who go to a nursing home to care for elderly parents, those folks, they can't get that testing. And he doesn't care, and he doesn't care to get the PPE to all of those folks who need it as well. And so he's got a double standard, one standard for himself and those immediately around him, and then a different standard for the rest of us who are working hard out here trying to make sure that we stay safe. And frankly, I think that he should have been setting an example a long time ago, weeks ago, with wearing a mask, and not just now that people around him are getting tested. He's not been a leader in this in any way, shape, or form.
Senator, you've been, and I agree with you that there's a lot of hypocrisy going around, what's good for the goose, not good for the gander. But you've been named to a task force to help advise on reopening the economy. What does that mean? What does that look like? Are you getting a clear directive from the White House? Are you getting a clear directive and participation from the president? What have you seen so far? What can you share with us?
Well, it's consisted of two phone calls. The first phone call lasted about an hour, And the president spent the first 45 minutes of that phone call bragging about how well he was doing and how well the United States is doing compared to other countries in terms of the number of testing and how we've done more tests than any other country, and other countries were calling us to ask for our tests. All lies, none of it true. He has been really focused on using this task force to spin his failures into some sort of a victory. When you can go out there and if you see that, over 70,000 Americans dead, that is not a victory. That is an utter failure. The fact that people cannot get access to testing and are having to show up to work and don't know whether or not they're COVID positive, that's a failure of this White House. The fact that doctors and nurses have to go buy their own PPE because the White House has not taken charge of the logistical network to deliver the PPE where they're needed, that's a failure. He spent his time trying to spin the task force into some sort of a publicity tool for him. And when asked, how many tests are we going to be able to do by the end of this week, they've had no answers for it. So I've been pretty frustrated with this task force. I keep asking the tough questions, but we're not getting any good answers.
So, Senator, Trump said that we must reopen because he only cares about his reelection, and that's all he cares about. So, because a lot of people are going to die because of all of the reopenings that are going on all over the place before they were ready to reopen. And even though Dr. Fauci himself is expected to warn the Senate today that if we open too soon, there will be needless suffering. He's probably doing it right now as we speak. We can't stay closed until there is a vaccine, I'm assuming, because that could be a year and a half away. So are the only options open are let people die and remain closed, or watch people suffer because they can't feed their family? It's really difficult right now to figure out what to do. But it seems to me that just opening willy-nilly is not going to work either, because there are going to be too many people who are going to die and suffer. The number could go through the roof. So what do you think we should be doing right now or soon? People keep asking me, Senator, when do you think we can go back to work? I don't know the answer. Do you?
Joy, when we can go back to work when there is widespread and free testing, when anyone who needs a test can get it. That's when we can start reopening the economy. If you look to the other nations that are doing a good job of this, you'll see that they have widespread and frequent and free testing. We can't wait for the vaccine, obviously, but we also can't send people back to work who don't know if they're going to get tested. And if you make testing too expensive, and then that person who comes in and cleans your hospital room, who is afraid that they may have caught this virus and they can't afford the $60 for the test, they're going to keep coming to work because they have to go to work. They have their rent to pay, and they have to send their kids, to daycare and all of those things. And so widespread testing that is free is the key to us being able to reopen the economy. And if we do it before that, if we do it prematurely, Joy, what will happen is that you will see another burst of positive cases and another increase, and then we will have to shut down the economy. And that'll be worse for us in the long run than if we were to open it in a methodical way, first with widespread testing and then with contact tracing widely available.